welcome to the Irresistible Marketing Pod, the podcast that believes in the black sheep scapegoat to successful disruptive entrepreneur pipeline. I'm your host, Isa Gauchi, your marketing confidence cheerleader and owner of the Isa Messaging digital marketing agency for small businesses, personal brands, and solopreneurs, making the world a better place through health, wellness, social justice, beauty, and the creative arts. Today's episode is an entry in my Entrepreneur Diaries where I reveal my long shot lore, the unconventional delulu thoughts that bolster my business, even especially in times of deep uncertainty. So if I had to pick one thing I'm really good at, it's shooting the moon. It's no secret that most of my clients and I strongly identify as black sheep, underdogs, rebels, who can't help but challenge the status quo every time we breathe. But as constructive as our vast creative love for the world is, our minds and our hearts tend towards the chaotic. And we have a lifetime of conditioning that everything about us that doesn't conform is wrong. And that's hard to dig ourselves out of, even when we take the radical step of going into business for ourselves. My 2025 New Year's resolution is to fully lean into the delulu. Why? Well, because it works for me, and I have a lot of evidence to back that up, especially when I contrast the times when I illogically, delusionally manifested goals with the times I took a much more structured, conventional, hard work, bootstrapping approach and achieved nothing at all except for more fodder for my anxiety disorders and chronic pain. But leaning into the delulu is no easy feat. The very fact that we call this approach, this mindset, this perspective, this orientation delulu is proof that it's not easy, because it's marginalized, it's maligned, it's written off as woo-woo and silly. School didn't teach this to me, corporate didn't teach this to me, mainstream business influencers and how-to books and bootstrapping American dream success stories didn't either. So in times of uncertainty, which are inevitable in entrepreneurship, it becomes very tempting to revert back to what I think a responsible, good girl corporate cog would do. But I've armed myself with 4 powerful vignettes from my real life to remind myself that there is a better way. And these vignettes really help me, and I'm hoping that perhaps they will help you too. Quick trigger warning, these vignettes do get a little dark before they get light. I will mention loss of a pet, chronic illness, abuse, and very briefly touch on suicidality. Please take care and feel free to skip this one if you don't want to get intense today. But do you know all of these stories have a happy ending? Okay, vignette number 1, the horses. I was making oatmeal in my kitchen in Southern California, drained after weeks of grieving the passing of the magnificent horse I'd grown up with in Oregon. You probably saw her a lot in my Instagram stories and posts if you followed me back in the day. So I'm making oatmeal in the kitchen, probably watching a terrible but delightful Bravo show, when I had a really sudden, powerful, clear as a bell impulse. Now first, let me set the stage a little bit. I'd grieved this horse, her sweet muzzle searching my pockets for cookies, our mad gallops through meadows and sedate collected trots that earned us ribbons and dressage arenas, her mischievously shoving cats off fence posts, her greeting me by scratching her face on my blue jeans so hard she'd nearly knock me over. I really, really grieved her leading up to this moment. But I also grieved horses being such a huge part of my life. And in the wake of her passing, how impossible it seemed they ever would get to be again. Me being isolated in a brand new city, in a brand new state, scraping by on the unreliable income of an entrepreneur still finding her feet. No connections. No money. But there, making oatmeal, watching Bravo, I randomly thought of a Facebook friend I hadn't seen or spoken to in real life in probably 20 years. I remember admiring a video of her riding somewhere with palm trees and a white fence that chanced across my feed who knows how long ago. And I thought, wait, there are palm trees here. There's that dusty gold and distinctive bright green quality to the colors of the landscape around here. I wonder if she's nearby. So I messaged her. She was in SoCal too. Did she know anyone who needed help with horses? Hell, I'd just feed and clean stalls if it meant I could be around them again. Not even 10 minutes after I had that initial thought, hey, I wonder if I had 2 new contacts who were looking for help with their horses. And fast forward to now, I've been spending the last year getting to ride again. You can't even book me on Thursdays or Sundays because I'm galloping through canyons and playing with dressage patterns again. I even got to spend a magical week in the Mojave last August, womaning a 6-horse ranch to my great delight. And before I just had that sudden clear of a bell, hey, I should message her, realization while making oatmeal and watching Bravo. I thought I would never be lucky enough to have horses in my life again. I thought it was impossible. And then one day, just like that, I manifested them back into my life in 10 minutes. From impulse to execution to something happening, 10 minutes. It took 10 minutes. Easily, without struggle, despite not having the resources I previously thought were required for such a thing to happen. Vignette number 2. How I became a marketer. After fighting long and hard and for several years for a real journalism job, I finally got one at a small local paper in Oregon. But 16 awards and 2.5 years later, I just lost my passion for it. I was so burnt out and exhausted. Deadlines ate all of my time and energy, and though I knew I wanted out, I was too tired to apply and line up anything concrete so I could jump ship in a financially responsible way. So, eventually, I just quit. I had about 2 months of expenses saved up and a sweet little dog to support. And my friend who owned the house I rented at the time would have been screwed if I couldn't pay rent money. Quitting like that, on the surface, seemed crazy and irresponsible. I knew no one who could loan me money if I needed it, and I doubt a bank would have given me a loan at the time. Quitting, on the surface, was a big, fat, irresponsible risk. But I just decided not to worry about it. I'd take a week to rest, hike through some national parks, read tarot in the sunny backyard, and dance barefoot in the garden. Then I'd apply to 1 job a day, and that was it. I simply decided that would be enough because it would have to be, and I refused to entertain any thoughts to the contrary. My criteria for my new job was simple. I wanted a job I didn't hate that paid my bills without a ton of effort on my part. And I wanted to be able to leave work at the office at 5 p.m. and not have to think about it at all until the next day. It did not have to be permanent. It didn't have to be a big strategic career move. I knew that I'd wanted to be a journalist for so long and felt like I'd achieved that, and I didn't have a clear new goal to take its place, and I decided I was okay with that. I was looking for a temporary solution, and that was fine. I actually got offers from the very first 2 jobs that I applied to, and I quickly accepted the one that paid more long before my 2 months of savings ran out. Hired originally as an executive assistant, I showed a knack for writing and soon became the company's first marketer. Then the marketing I made got some attention, and our clients, who had originally been coming to us just for market research, started hiring us for marketing work as well. As the next few years zoomed by, I helped that company launch their own marketing agency as a brand new aspect of their business. I hired, trained, and managed a team, and the rest is history. Vignette number 3, Onyx. So I was broke as a joke early in my entrepreneurship journey and having so many debilitating chronic pain flare ups, I could not get out of my family home I'd only meant to stay in for a month or two. And I was already deeply ashamed of having to do even that. But things kept going very fucking sideways. I got COVID and was bedridden for weeks. My relationship with my family deteriorated. Then my beloved dog, who'd been my best friend for 11 years, got a particularly grisly form of cancer and passed away. As I got sicker, my family regularly threatened me with homelessness, and my pain got worse, and everything felt hopeless. Nothing, and I mean nothing, felt like it was working. My efforts, both in my business and trying to just get another normal job I hated so I could leave, felt meaningless, hopeless. Nothing was coming of them. And as I grieved my dog and served my clients, worked on the family farm, and unsuccessfully applied for jobs only to be told it wasn't enough and I'd be kicked out, all I could think about was how on earth I'd survive homelessness. The terror, the shame, and the physical pain of my illness were overwhelming. But slowly, I started to gain some momentum. I got more clients in my business. I joined a local entrepreneurship group for fabulous, witchy small business owners, and new awesome people came into my life. I did a work trade for a pass to use an incredible top floor workspace overlooking the Burnside Bridge, the Willamette River in downtown Portland, an hour away from my toxic home. People wanted to be a guest on my podcast. People wanted me to guest on their podcasts. Mitu even invited me to write for them after I wrote an initial article for them, or essay, more like a personal essay for them. And I tried to, but I got too sick to keep going. And then one day, out of nowhere, it hit me again, clear as a bell. I was ready for a dog again. Because I'm just the sort of person who needs dog energy in her life. All the love I had to give would have someplace to go. My mental health would be better. I'd have more daily fun, play, joy, and affection, which I desperately needed. Maybe this would even bolster me so I could stay healthy long enough to get the fuck out of my toxic, horrible living situation. Here's what's weird though. I'd been so focused on money for so long because I really, really wanted to get out. And I was not getting the money I needed. I was not getting nearly as much as I needed. Even when I was like, okay, fine, I'll just get a normal job again. It just wasn't happening. The money was like scared of me. And I assumed, even after I had this clear as a bell realization that I'm ready for a dog again, a dog would be good. I assumed it would be a really long time before I would ever be able to get a dog because how would I afford it? But I couldn't help but keep daydreaming about it. I wanted a husky or husky mix, a puppy I could train right from the beginning, who could become best friends with my cat. Then, randomly, a contact of mine showed up in my inbox, ready and willing to buy a higher ticket project. And their deposit was exactly enough to pay an adoption fee, get all the food and toys he needed, pay all his vet bills, and set us up with a puppy training class. WTF. And so my beloved Onyx came into my life. Vignette number 4, SoCal. So right when my hope was restored because Onyx came into my life, my living situation got worse. The workspace where I'd set up my monitor was made unavailable, triggering my neck injuries that are exacerbated when I have to look down at my computer rather than straight ahead. I spent a lot of days in so much pain. All I could do was throw up. That was it. Throw up and just be in agony. It was dark times. And yet, I'd be berated and threatened with eviction before client meetings and sales calls. I was screamed at, cursed at, and told how much of a burden I was. It was horrible, a horrible, horrible time in my life. When I wasn't sick, I did my best to cope and gather the money I needed to get out. I went to therapy, I applied for jobs, I learned to roller skate, I danced at my client's pole studio in downtown Portland as much as I could. I avoided my family as much as possible and tried not to despair that I'd never be healthy or lucky enough to make enough money to leave. And then I did get kicked out. I was given a deadline to get out or else and was faced with the prospect of being homeless in an Oregon winter that causes the freezing deaths of unhoused people more frequently every year of climate change. I'd have to find homes for my cat and my puppy, and I didn't think I'd have the will to live without them. And they were so bonded to me, I couldn't imagine how they'd do without me. I remember taking Onyx out to one of the pastures on the farm and literally just tipping over and lying in the dirt thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? I've tried everything as hard as I can and it didn't work. I have no options left. God help me. I was frozen in my powerlessness. I just decided to lie in the dirt. I knew there was nothing else I could do. There was no way I could have tried harder, done more. I wasn't consciously giving up, but it was a tossing of the problem into the wind. I'd done my part, there was nothing else to do. I honestly don't remember who I told, what I was going through, or what I told them, or when I told them. But lying in the dirt that day, I must have texted someone because suddenly my business coach was setting up a fundraiser for me and people literally donated thousands to get me out. One of my entrepreneur buddies offered to let me rent her studio apartment, giving me the first month free in faraway Southern California. People bought big ticket projects from my business in droves. Others funded my car repairs so I could make the 1,000-mile journey. People were kind and sent me messages of encouragement and told me how my story touched them and how they related to it or had been in a similar position at some time in their life. And people shared my story, and soon people who were donating and messaging me were people I didn't even really know. Or I didn't know. They were contacts of contacts. My community literally rose up and pulled me out. And not just me, my pets too. So I got to pack Onyx and my demon cat into the back seat and whatever I could fit in the trunk of my little Malibu Chevy, and I drove 1,000 miles to my new home, propelled by dozens of people who turned out to be rooting for me at a time in my life when I felt utterly and completely alone. How could I have ever predicted that? It certainly was not planned or expected. So, why are these 4 vignettes so important to me as a CEO, as a leader, as marketing confidence cheerleader, and how I help other people in the way I now hold myself when I approach problems, uncertainty, scary times? Well, these vignettes, I feel like really encapsulate the lore that bolsters me, the lore I arm myself with to handle all the shit. So, because they contain important elements that keep me going and succeeding, rather than succumbing to my fears of doom and financial ruin, I want to share what about these stories are my most dear takeaways that I carry with me and consciously remind myself of when I'm starting to spiral. 1, detach from the how. 2, release control. 3, decide it's going to work and surrender to that belief. 4, worry is not necessary or helpful. 5, it might actually be really easy. 6, it'll happen in time. 7, I will not be punished for resting. So let's talk a little bit about each of these lessons. Number 1, detach from the how. So in each of these 4 situations, I got something I really desperately wanted, not from making and following an intricate regimented plan, but I simply showed up how it occurred to me to show up to indicate I was available for something I wanted. But then I got it. I did not know how it would work before it worked. I just was open to the possibility it could work. and then it did. 2. Release control. I was not in control of any of these situations. It's true, I did show up and take what action I could. But all of these manifestations required the willingness and action of other people in order for me to fulfill my desires. My friend did not have to recommend me to horse trainers in her network, and the horse trainers in her network didn't have to agree to give me a shot, and yet they did. No one had to offer me a job, and yet they did. No one had to buy projects from me, and yet they did. No one had to move heaven and earth to get me to Los Angeles County, but a lot of people did. But here is what I want to be clear about. I did not, and I don't control other people, and I don't try to, and yet I still got what I wanted. Now, I'm saying this as something other folks might need to hear, but I want to tell you personally what I needed to realize about my desire for control, because full control is impossible, but our desire from control tends to be a coping strategy for dealing with the fear, the terror of uncertainty, of how scary it feels to not be fully in control of what happens to us. So where I did and really do have to check a toxic desire for control is my impulse to overwork. Overworking is how I tend to use control as a way to cope with uncertainty. It's an addictive drive. Yeah, like it's an addiction. It's an addictive drive to do everything I possibly can so no one can accuse me of not doing, quote unquote, enough. But there are a few glaring problems with this premise. So I learned the hard way that you can work until your body literally breaks and people can still accuse you of not doing enough. So might as well trust your own judgment on what enough is, or abandon the entire concept of enoughness. So the other major glaring problem with this premise is that I'd been working hard that whole time. I don't really see any correlation between working super hard and making more profit. Actually, money usually came through in the times when I let myself stop, pause, rest, play, have fun. And if hard work was enough to make money, you and I would know a lot more rich people, and the working poor we know would all be frickin' millionaires. So I know y'all can see that hard work isn't necessarily the thing that brings in the big bucks. So, major takeaway here. When scared about money, working harder is actually not the correct move. We gotta figure out how to work smarter. 3. Decide it's going to work and surrender to this belief. These 4 vignettes showcase times when, for different reasons, I surrendered to the belief that it was going to work because it had to, and that was the only reality I was willing to actively prepare for. In the last case, it was more of an I've done all I can do and now it's up to God, the universe, fate, chance, luck sort of surrender, but it was still a surrender. Trust. 4. Worry is not necessary. As someone who has struggled immensely with anxiety throughout her life, I can confirm that anxiety does not smooth or speed up the path to manifesting your desires, even in business. In fact, all 4 of these instances represent too direct a desire to waste time on energy and anxiety. That clear of a bell, oh, this is a thing I want, or this is something I should go to, or this is a person I should reach out to, or this is something I want to prepare for. It was too direct. It was too clear. There wasn't space between that clarity for anxiety and worry. There wasn't space for waffling. There was just clear, potent desire or direction, or I've done all I can do. And when worry wasn't clouding my judgment, it was much easier to take smart, effective, efficient action to bring about what I wanted. 5. It might actually be really easy. So my situation changed drastically on a dime in each of these vignettes. Clear desire, decide, surrender, and then bam, it's mine. So stop thinking getting what you want has to be arduous and hard, because it doesn't. 6, it'll happen in time, because it has to. We're just deciding. Worrying about how long you have to make it happen is just not helpful, and it distracts from the clarity of your desire and the clearness of direction for what actions are right to take. 7, I will not be punished for resting. In fact, the stuff I wanted happened when I was resting, perhaps even because I was resting. So I was not punished for resting, but I was punished for working past my limits. I was punished for working in a directionless way. I was punished for working just to work. Interesting, Can you smell how much of those limiting beliefs we just worked through reek of toxic capitalism? Can't you just picture the abusive figures who installed and reinforced these beliefs in the first place in me and other people who struggle with similar limiting beliefs, similar drives to overwork, similar lack of trust that it's going to work out for them, that they deserve to get what they want, that they're enough, that they're good enough, that they're doing enough? Because when I think in this new way, I mysteriously stop equating morality with how much money I have, how much utilitarian value I have to other people. That's not what worth is. And I stop gauging whether I'm good enough by how much I'm working, grinding, or hurting myself in service of an institution, of other people, of especially folks who don't have my best interests at heart or aren't mutually showing up. I stopped trying to do what I should do by any external standard and start allowing my inner compass to have full control of the ship that is me. I stop valuing self-sacrifice and start valuing fulfillment. So no wonder these beliefs are not taught in the mainstream and are often categorized as silly or woo-woo or selfish or audacity, because they are far too dangerous to the systems that are designed to keep us too exhausted and subordinate to consider doing something radical like going into business for ourselves, to opting out to being a cog in the machine. These beliefs are dangerous to toxic, oppressive systems that demand conformity, because what if we become wildly successful doing things totally differently, showing our communities that opting out is a valid and lucrative choice? And because these beliefs are dangerous to the status quo, those who benefit from systems that oppress you will try to stamp this way of thinking right out of you. Same goes for many oppressive systems like abusive families or relationships, which makes it incredibly important, essential for you to find people who think as dangerously, as expansively, as lovingly, as innovatively as you do, or as you aspire to. You need community because we all do. You need support because we all do. And you especially need it because you are doing something wildly different, courageous, and brave. The people you allow to influence you better be opening you up to the possibility of new, healthier, better outcomes, lest you stay stuck not getting what you want, which would be a tragedy because you came here to do big work, important work that is good for the world, that is really needed by the people you most want to serve. Now, podcasts, books, courses, these are all great, but they really can't compare to having a mentor you trust who can help you identify and check your limiting beliefs and maladaptive coping strategies. Someone who will help you to upgrade your perspective with an outlook on life that befits the leader that you are becoming, that you're growing into. So if you are yearning for this kind of support, I would love to work with you. I have a few spots open to work with me one-on-one in my Season of Support program, or you are very welcome to come join me in the Squad, my fabulous membership for excellently eccentric entrepreneurs. You can also get a taste of what it's like to work with me as your marketing confidence cheerleader by booking a complimentary 22-minute marketing audit designed to help you see what you're not seeing so you can start getting the results you want right away. Do check the show notes. The links for how to work with me and all of the above scenarios are included, as are the links for how to follow me on social media. Search at Marketing Confidence Cheerleader. That's a safe bet. You'll probably find me on most of the platforms with that one, but specific links are in the show notes. And if you have not already, please do smash that subscribe button and leave me 5 freaking stars. Okay, love you, bye.